Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a Sorcerer Rogue multi-class build guide for Baldur's Gate 3. Now this is not a very popular multi-class because they don't have the most perfect synergy together, but there is something that can make this build very interesting for some very large Nova damage. Now I want to get into it. We're going to start off with the Sorcerer because starting with Sorcerer gives us the proficiencies in Constitution saving throws. You can also start as the Rogue. The Rogue does have a bit of a more challenging start, but as a bonus you get more skills proficiencies, so it's really up to you where you want to start as. If you're at level 12, start with the Rogue because the extra skill proficiencies don't get applied whenever you multi-class it, but if you're starting off, the Sorcerer is going to be a lot stronger. So we're going to go ahead with our cantrips here now. Minor Illusion seems to be a really great option here because we can use this, and if we want to use stealth, we can pull enemies to different areas. Now, the Rogue does bring a lot of utility out of combat as well, which I'll get into, but in terms of what we're going to select for cantrips, I think that Shocking Grasp and Ray of Frost are two of the better ones there. And we're a Wood Elf, so we do get ourselves the Firebolt, so we're not going to select that one there. But Mage Hand can be a pretty decent option as well. If you're the face of the party, Friends is a no-brainer because this allows you to open up a lot of different things in combat or in conversations. Bone Chill can be another great one, but we're going to go with the Mage Hand there because it does bring a lot of utility to this. Now, as far as our cantrips are going to go, I think that Magic Missile is a pretty solid level 1 spell. And Chromatic Orb is also quite strong as well. Chromatic Orb can be upcasted for lots of damage alongside Magic Missile. Shield is another great option. So we can take off Chromatic Orb and go Shield because this is going to increase your armor class by 5. Take no damage from Magic Missile. This is a reaction that can help out a lot as we're kind of a squishier build here. Like we're a glass cannon. Now, for our subclass, I think that the Draconic Bloodline seems to be the best of this. Storm Sorcery is great too, don't get me wrong, but for the purposes of this build, the extra health and since we're not wearing armor, Draconic Resilience helps out a lot here. Now, as far as our Dragon Ancestor, there's one that really sticks out to me for this build, and it's the Bronze. Blue is pretty good too, but at Witch Bolt's not the most amazing spell. I think that for the purposes of the stealth, we want to go with this because this gives us Fog Cloud, which can heavily obscure creatures within it. And that does have some synergy with the Rogue, so we're going to go with that. And it's going to increase our lightning damage, which is super useful later on. We're going to go with none of the Draconic Faces there because I'm not a huge fan of that. But as far as our ability scores go, now this is where things can get interesting because Dexterity is the main stat of the Rogue, but we're not going to be fully focusing on that. Constitution's a really big one for us. We're going to drop our Wisdom, drop our Intelligence. We're going to bump up our Dexterity roughly to there, and then we can put an extra point into Constitution, make that a nice rounded 16. We need all the Constitution that we can get for this, so something like that. The extra initiative from Dexterity is quite nice as well. And that allows us to use knives if we want to, or daggers. And then our charisma is our main spellcasting modifier, so we want that as high as possible. And it also makes sense if we're the face of the party to be using that, because that's going to be what a lot of our conversations are based off of. Now for level 2, the next spell that we can go with, Mage Armor is pretty decent, but we already have this kind of set up with Draconic Bloodline. I like Ice Knife or Chromatic Orb, so take either one of these for the damage that it brings. Ice Knife does a area of effect damage, and we want to be using water because lightning and cold damage can double their damage in water, which makes this very powerful and makes up for the fact that we're not super synergetic. Now, I like the distance spell to increase the range of spells by 50%. Not super useful, but it can have its uses. Twin Spell. This is where things get wild. We're going to go with that one because we can twin haste. That makes pretty much the Sorcerer one of the most broken classes in Baldur's Gate 3, and it makes up for our Rogue losing 3 levels out of the Sorcerer, because the Sorcerer, I believe, is probably the best class in this game. It's extremely powerful. Now at level 2, we do get some really nice spells that we can use here. So Scorching Ray is a nice single target damage. Cloud of Daggers can be decent, but I'm a fan of Hold Person because the utility that this brings can be great. If you already have someone on your team that has the Hold Person, I would go for something else like Scorching Ray, but I think that this is a really great spell. So next we get our Quicken spell, which allows us to use a bonus action as an action to cast a spell. And you're seeing where this is going with the Rogue. So the Rogue can get an extra bonus action, which allows us to cast 3 spells. So that gets pretty crazy pretty quickly. We will be going up to level 9 in Sorcerer, so for our next cantrip, we can go with like Bone Chill. Necrotic damage and preventing the target from being healed is huge. For our spell at level 2, I think that Scorching Ray can be pretty decent. This is upcasted. It gives us a bit of fire damage. But Clouded Daggers is also another one that some people like to go with. But really pick whatever of the two that you prefer. There is some utility that you can have here, like Dark Vision. But we also get ourselves our ability improvement feat here. So there's also other choices that you can go with. We're going to pretend that this is 18. If you're the pace of the party, use the Hag's Hair on this. And then we're going to take it up to 20 if we were using the Hag's Hair. This is our main spellcasting modifier. We want that high, simply put. Now for our level 3 spells, we actually get some really nice options here. I'm impartial to haste. I think that this is great because we can twin this, give ourselves an extra action and give someone else an extra action, and also get +2 to armor class and become faster. So haste is really one of the best spells in the game. I see a lot of people talking about it, but I see some people saying that no, it's not that great. But getting an extra action, if we cast this on ourselves and then use 2 quicken spells, we can have 4 spells in 1 turn. That's crazy. So we definitely want to use that. This gives this class the highest Nova damage because we can just cast 4 high level spells with this. So our next level 3 spell, I like Counter Spell. If you have a wizard that already has this, I would go for something else. Lightning Bolt is another great option. Fireball is the classic, but I like Lightning Bolt for the reason that we're going to be using water on this build to set up lightning damage, so we're going to go with that. We can also take Fireball or Counterspell. Counterspell's great, don't get me wrong, but for the purpose of this build, we're not going to have as many spell slots, so we don't want to be using them all up on Counterspell all the time. Now, for our next leveled spell at level 7, we do get some, I guess on the previous level there, we do get the increase to our lightning damage because we chose the blue dragon. So next at level 4, we get things like Firewall, which can be pretty decent. But I'm a big fan of Ice Storm personally myself. Reason being, we can set up Ice Storm, and that creates icy surfaces. And then we can drop like a Fireball afterwards, and then break that into water and then use lightning damage. So that's where this build gets really crazy, because if you can cast 3 spells, you can do a Ice Storm, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, 3 attacks. Really crazy. So for our next spell, we're going to finally take ourselves Fireball. This is a great spell. You know what Fireball does. It's just one of those spells that's really popular in Baldur's Gate. And then for our next level feat, we're going to go with something along the lines of you can go with an ability improvement and take your constitution up for some more survivability, but Alert. I think that Alert's one of the best perks in Baldur's Gate 3 because it gives us the +5 to initiative, which is actually really great. +5 to initiative gives you the ability to go first. And this build wants to go first because we're setting up massive amounts of damage. Now we're going to get into the final level of our sorcery here. And with this, we're going to be taking a level 5 spell. Now, you have quite a few options. There is the Cone of Cold, which is probably my favorite of here, but I also like Hold Monster. This can paralyze any creature that's not undead, so pretty much anything in the game. And then attacks within 3 meters always critical hits. That's huge. Insect Plague can create difficult terrain and damage, kind of like Cloud of Daggers, but a little bit stronger, so I like that, but I think the Cone of Cold, because we're going to be focusing on water damage, cold goes alongside that, double damage. So this can do 128 damage if we got water set up at max. So that is fantastic. We're gonna go with that one there. But this is the final level of Sorcerer, so take whatever spell you think works best, and then if you want to replace one of your lower level spells, you can also go with that. So there it is. At level 10, we do get ourselves some more spell slots and sorcerer points, but I want to make this build because I think this is an interesting combination. So adding in the Rogue, which is kind of funny, this is going to bring us a little bit closer to high Nova damage. Obviously, the Sorcerer is pretty broken, and you don't want to really take too many levels out of Sorcerer, but we can get ourselves some Sleight of Hand proficiency, super useful outside of combat, and Stealth. You can also go with Persuasion, but one of these, whatever you, I guess, prefer in terms of what you need to fill out your character with, but that's more so for role-playing purposes. It does have a lot of utility outside of combat, but here we get our Cunning Actions, Hide, dash, and disengage with bonus actions. Not super useful, but this is where this is what the build's all about, is level 3. So the thief is really, I would say, the best multi-class because bonus action. We can turn our bonus actions into actions. That's where this gets a little bit nice. Arcane Trickster, just take more levels of Sorcerer, don't even bother with that. And Assassin, we don't get the advantage on attack rolls because we're casting spells, so Thief really is the best. We also can gain resistance to falling damage. Not the biggest thing ever, but fast hands, that's what we're here for. So, as we get into our gear, really a big focus of this is you want to have someone that can create water. If you don't have someone that can create water, cast Mage Hand outside of combat, and that's going to be huge because once you cast Mage Hand, you can drop a water bottle. It can throw the water bottle for you. So that's how you set up water, because we don't have create water on this, but water bottles are pretty easy to get in this game. So for our gear options, Circulated Blasting can give you Scorching Ray if you didn't end up taking it. There's some great wizard hats. Cold Brim will give 2 levels of encrusted with frost. We can't use any heavy armor, so we are limited to like light armor options. So there are some decent-ish light armor options here, but in terms of our cape, we're gonna go with the Shade Slayer. So, or I guess not this one. Wrong gear. The Deathstalker Mantle is actually probably the best. As I mentioned, if you're doing this for Dark Urge, turn invisible after getting a kill. That's really nice. Also, the Vivacious Cloak can give us temporary health points after casting a spell in melee, which does happen from time to time, so that's not a bad one to take either. For clothing, we can use light armor, but the Potent Rogue, your cantrips deal additional damage equal to your charisma modifier. That's really nice because we have high charisma. Gloves of Dexterity can be great options too if you wanted to dump your dexterity. As you can see here, we got a 20 armor class. If we take those off, we do lose a bit of armor class. So the Gloves of Dexterity can be really nice just to make sure that your armor class is high enough. You can get those really early on. So that's one option you can go with. But there's lots of great gloves for sorcerers, and I encourage you to use whatever you got that's going to be most optimal. The Gloves of Dexterity just give us that extra armor class. I like the Space Hunt boots because getting Dimension Door to get out of there really quickly is nice because the sorcerer's a bit squishy. Now for a weapon, I got the Spell Sparkler to set up lightning charges, and then I got the Blast Pendant to use lightning blast and use those lightning charges. And what's cool is if we got hit at multiple enemies with the Spell Sparkler, we can get 2 lightning charges per target hit, and then we can use that to blast with higher lightning damage. So this does get pretty crazy. So yeah, I'm just using a couple rings here. Whenever the wearer deals cold damage, they create a circle of ice. And when a foe fails a saving throw against one of your spells, they gain mental fatigue. Gundam Mail gives us a Celestial Hate too, but we're not proficient in that. So that's what we're going to be going with for the Sorcerer Rogue build. Now, what makes this build useful is the fact that we get those 2 bonus actions. So, like, as I said, we could hypothetically cast Ice Storm, which is a huge area of effect. That's going to deal 4d6 of cold damage and 2d8 of bludgeoning damage. Then we can drop a Fireball, turn that into water, and then as our targets are wet, Lightning Bolt. So you can cast a lot of spells because as you can see we got action, bonus action, and then we got our 9 sorcery points to be able to use Quicken Spell twice. So that is a pretty crazy build. If we even are casting haste on ourselves, so that uses 1 action, we get 2 actions, 2 bonus actions, and then we have Quicken Spell, which can make 4 total actions. So that is pretty wild. It's definitely a different build, not the most powerful. I would rather go to 12 levels of Sorcerer myself, but there it is, Rogue Sorcerer Multiclass Build Guide for Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below, and I'll see you in the next video.